our fantastic guest. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Insights and Innovations for this Monday. And we have very, very special guests from Crimtan and my good friend Karim, who's going to talk us through using AI throughout the programmatic journey and where we're at the moment and how to make the most of it. Karim, over to you to take things over.
Thank you, Sam. I'll just quickly share my screen. Give us a second. Well, first and foremost, again, thanks, Sam, and also great to be here. I do appreciate everyone jumping on. I know we're smack in the middle of Q4 madness. It's also lunchtime, so I'll try to keep these short and sweet. If you guys take away one or two takeaways, I'll count that as a win. So today I'm just going to chat about what we're seeing across the agencies who are performing really well, specifically around how they're using AI to make smarter media decisions around real-time actionable insights. I'll introduce a bit of a framework called Listen, Plan, Activate, and Measure. So the LPAM framework, and how agencies we're working with are using it to their advantage, and specifically look at how AI technology can actually connect all those pieces across that planning and buying process. So if there's one line to kind of hold on to from today, it's definitely learn first, buy second, and measure always. So basically, just to give you a bit of a background, I've actually worked selling into indie agencies for the last 15 years. And, you know, I'm constantly amazed at the ranges of approaches when it comes to strategy and planning. So I've seen everything from agencies running, quick insights polls or surveys around a boardroom table, to others just relying on old age assumptions or old research. And, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got, agencies who are doing it really well. They're using the right technology as a continuous feedback loop throughout, the planning and buying and measurement process. I guess the reality is that just buying media isn't enough anymore. So for indie agencies to really compete and compete properly, they actually got to squeeze every bit of value out of the data that they have. And there's a lot of data out there. It just basically means using the insights to plan smarter, activate with more precision, and measure in a way that continuously improves the next campaign. So that continuous feedback loop. Look, it wouldn't be an industry insight session if I did not bring up the rise of AI. At Crimtan, we actually like to call it humanized intelligence. It's really changed the way tech partners and agencies work at the moment. A lot of people are currently, worry about AI and the fact that it's going to replace human creativity, but we actually see it completely differently. We see it as something that refines creativity, not actually replaces it. So, at Crimtan, AI is woven into every stage of the media process. And basically, the technology is used to unlock deeper insights before a single dollar is actually spent. Then, help build personalized creative and messaging at scale, and then predict the levers that actually drive better outcomes for clients. But, and this is probably the most important bit, but we don't actually hand everything over to AI. We use it as an advantage or a tool that amplifies the work that humans actually do best. So kind of just taking a step back in terms of setting up the context. And for those who might not know who Crimtan are, so in simple terms, we're an end-to-end programmatic partner for agencies, but our real kind of specialty is dynamic creative. So we kind of deliver that through an integrated tech stack, which brings together, four main technologies. You've got DMP for audience intelligence, DSP for investment intelligence, DCO tech for creative intelligence, and it's all kind of stitched together through our Active ID technology and solution. So the beauty of having everything under one integrated tech stack allows us to be super efficient when looking at this process that a lot of agencies that we're working with are taking advantage of. So the listen, plan, activate, and measure process. So using the tech stack, before a dollar's even spent, we are able to identify the most valuable audiences and also kind of the potential customers that you have available. We're then using a lot of those insights to plan across the channels your audience actually consume media on. and then moving to the activation through the DSP, we're able to kind of plan and buy across all programmatic channels, but then serve super personalized creative that adapts in real time. And on the measurement side of things, not just measuring all the metrics, but the right metrics, the ones that are looking at business outcome level, not just vanity media metrics. So looking at this LPM framework, it's something that we're seeing more and more agencies lean into. And, the ones who are refining it and doing it well are the ones who are genuinely competing on another level. We get it though, like time pressures, budgets, fast moving clients, all of that can actually attempt a lot of agencies to cut corners or skip steps just to try to get a campaign up and running. But what we've consistently found is that when agencies, follow this framework properly for their campaigns, it actually just performs better, full stop. It brings structure, it brings clarity, and it just ensures every decision from planning to buying to optimization is actually grounded in something real rather than guesswork. So the LPM framework's what a lot of agencies are starting to do to compete on that another level. So just to quickly break down each step of the framework, just 2 seconds, guys. I've got someone drilling next door, and I hope you can't hear that.
We can't hear it. It's all good.
I'm back. So basically, looking at the 4 main steps, during the listen phase, it's all about identifying the real drivers behind purchase behavior and really getting a deep understanding of, how the audience actually consumes media. This is a real key area of the process. It's done before a dollar's spent, and we're able to kind of build up high intent custom audiences, and those audiences or more customers that are more likely to move. Using everything we've learned in the listen phase, we then move to the planning phase. So that's where we kind of build genuine data-driven media campaigns or plans, and that's also where dynamic creative or DCO comes in. So allowing you to match the right message to the right persona at every stage of the funnel. Then we move into activation. So, making sure we're running across multiple channels and formats, and I guess using AI to give us a continuous insights that help optimize performance and maximize impact. So, having a fluid budget across those channels just to ensure that once we are getting the insights from AI to then be able to shift budgets to those better performing channels. And then finally, measurement. So that's where, real-time cookieless analysis and reporting come together. Everything we learn here feeds right back into the next listen phase of the next campaign. So just diving a little deeper into each step of the LPM framework so you can kind of get a better idea in terms of how it relates, not just in theory, but in practice as well. So during that listen phase, we use an active ID pixel to drill down into the different attributes of your customers, and your potential customers. So we're seeing all types of kind of data triggers from site behavior, psychographic insights, media consumption habits, transactional patterns, and of course, more traditional demographic data. And from there, by capturing all that data through active ID, we're able to start building a clear picture of your customer base, who they are, how valuable they are, and how they actually behave. It also kind of allows us to separate your current customers from your high value prospects, those who might not even be aware of your brand. And all that intelligence just feeds straight back into the planning phase. So we're not guessing, we're actually planning with purpose. Now we move on to the plan phase. So now we've built out all these insights and segments, we can actually start informing your media and creative plans in a meaningful way. So basically being able to size the opportunity at each stage of the funnel, recommend budget allocations across locations using geo-indexing insights. We then will go about building a DCO strategy that just delivers personalized messaging based on, the different personas or where they fit within the customer lifecycle stage. And then from there, we kind of shape the channel mix using real media consumption and audience persona data. So every decision is grounded in, not what you think people are doing, but what they're actually doing. So just moving on to a few visual examples of personas we pulled from a recent kind of listening phase for one of our clients. So basically in this case, the data revealed that there were three main personas there. So you got affluent travelers, tech professionals, and sporty execs. It's actually really interesting to see how differently each of these groups behaves, not only in terms of profile, but conversion rate and frequency. So based on the insights captured, we could see clear variations in conversion rates from high to medium, as well as differences in their on-site frequency, which ranges from medium all the way up to very high. So now that we've identified those personas, we can actually understand them more in terms of what they mean in a meaningful way. Just looking at affluent travelers, for instance, they're typically 25 to 35-year-olds, slightly skewed towards females. They're currently motivated by things like culture and prestige, and they visit the site quite frequently, and convert at a much higher rate, which already tells us that they're going to be a very valuable audience. The geographic indexing allows us to kind of show that they're concentrated in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. And then when we dig into the interests, we can actually see a mix of entertainment, sports, and pop culture coming through. The channel strategy for each persona is also shaped directly by what we cover during this listen phase. So using the AI tech, we're able to see which channels they actually use, but also the context and environment that they consume media in. So this means we can plan a lot more strategically. We can set the right contextual targeting parameters, and also just ensure that every touch point feels relevant and aligned to that specific persona and how they actually engage with different formats of media. Now, here's an example. You've got Lena. She's 29. She's an affluent traveler. She lives in Sydney, works as a brand strategist, and loves taking weekend trips with her partner. Because of what we've learned in that listen phase, we can build a really intentional audience strategy around someone like Lena. We know she's the type of person who responds well to brand building channels. So, looking at upper funnel channels like CTV or digital audio. From there, we can layer in display and native to keep the message consistent across multiple touch points. And then once she's engaged, we can retarget with high impact, highly personalized, dynamic creative that actually speaks to her interests and behaviors. From there, we can start thinking real strategically about dynamic messaging. Because of Lena's profile, the messaging journey can be mapped out and changes over time. So look, starting with something emotional, moving into something more aspirational, and then actually eventually introducing a sense of urgency. So by taking Lena on that personalized sequential messaging journey, we're not just showing her an ad, we're guiding her through a story that feels very relevant at every stage that she's in. And that naturally just leads to higher engagement and a stronger ROI across the entire campaign, because a lot of, more people are seeing the right message at the right time, all about personalization. The beauty about the DCO technology is that it handles all of this in real time. So basically being able to pull in the right images for each persona, selecting in the messaging that fits where they are in the journey, whether that's emotion, aspirational, or urgency led, and then matches it with the most relevant CTA. So what you've got is a creative that feels personalized to each individual, all driven by the insights we've uncovered in the listening phase. So just using that creative as an example, it's pulling in that relevant image based on the persona. It's pulling in that copy based on whether it's emotional, aspirational, or urgency led, and then it's pulling in that relevant CTA. Now to the activate stage. So now we've defined our personas and we've built out our personalized creative for each one. We've got to identify the right channels to reach them. And it's kind of time to activate. So here's a bit of an in situ example of an outcome of what it looks like once you do activate. This time, looking at an affluent traveler who happens to be male, living in London and classified as a business elite with clear intent to travel soon. So based on all these insights, the persona, the interest, and the intent signals, the DCO tech has pulled together this creative. What's really powerful here is that it's dynamically changing the flight duration time from the location to the destination, which is Abu Dhabi. It also has the current weather in both locations dynamically changing, which, let's be honest, actually adds a bit of temptation to book that holiday, especially if you're moving from, the climate of London to Abu Dhabi. So activating across the connected channel ecosystem is ultimately what drives the strongest results. So when messaging is personalized and sequenced consistently across multiple channels, you're actually guiding them through the entire decision-making journey in a really intentional way. Using active ID or unique tech like an ID solution, it's great to identify that same prospect or target through various channels, just ensuring that you're showing them the right message across the right channel. And just to cut a long story short, leveraging connected channels actually just provides better campaign outcomes, whatever they might be. And that brings us to kind of the final stage of the LPAM framework, which is measure. So for successful agencies, measurement just doesn't happen at the end. It actually begins before the campaign starts, right back in that listen phase. And the key thing here is that we're not just measuring media metrics, we're measuring business change. So the outcomes that actually matter to clients. Because every stage of the media planning buying process or during the LPM framework is connected. So what we listen for determines what we measure, how we measure determines what we plan next for the next campaign, and how we shift from basic campaign reporting to genuine continuous improvement. Some of the successful agencies we're working with as well, they're moving past some of the vanity media metrics, so impressions, clicks, views, conversions, and looking at metrics that are actually impacting the business outcome. Further to this, it's absolutely critical that we break down performance by creative and persona as well, because that's where the real insight lives. So using measurement frameworks like the LPM journey, you can actually get a real deeper learning of insights and really feed that into the next stage. So just, they refine the audiences we target, the creative we serve, and the channels we choose. So every campaign becomes smarter and more effective than the one before. I've got a bit of a case study here. It's a recent case study we ran for an Australian sporting client who wanted to drive ticket sales. So the campaign only ran for 1 month and it did just purely focus on display activity. But during the learning phase, we were able to identify 5 key personas that were more likely to convert, and they became the foundation of how we planned and personalized the rest of the campaign. We ended up breaking the audience into 5 key personas. You had family escapes, viral voyagers, parental alchemists, aspiring champs, and high net worth individuals. Each of these groups had their own unique drivers, motivations, and interests, and that allowed us to plan the campaign properly with messaging and targeting that actually aligned to what mattered most for each persona. So the LPM framework is really what allowed us to build personalized creative for each of these personas. So when comparing the results against the control group that we built, so that was an audience that wasn't segmented in persona, the difference was actually quite striking. So the persona-based audiences delivered a CPA in between $20 and $30, whereas the control group that didn't have were non-persona audiences, they were more up in the $80 mark. So it was, huge at 63%. It was actually 63% more cost effective in terms of the CPA versus the non-persona control segment. The key takeaway here is simple. So when you personalize the experience based on, real audience insights, performance shifts dramatically. I guess, so what's the point of all this? It's pretty simple. It's just better campaign outcomes, and everyone's looking for better campaign outcomes. Our framework is a result of 15 years worth of experience and experimentation, both developed through processes and technologies to improve campaign results across the board. So basically, in today's landscape, the successful indie agencies we're working with aren't just buying media, they're grounding each decision in real-time insights, and that LPM framework allows them to kind of do that. By listening first, the agencies are actually uncovering audiences and behaviors that truly drive value. Planning then becomes intentional. You're able to map out the right channels at the right moments, and then use the right creative for each of those personas. Activation becomes a lot smarter through connected channels, and then real-time personalization is also powered by AI. And then on the measurement side of things, it just shifts from surface level metrics to business impact, and then feeds back into the next campaign. And in short, we've worked with a lot of advertisers, both here locally and globally, who've followed a similar framework, just to help them stay ahead of the curve. And if anyone's interested to hear a bit more around how similar agencies or advertisers are working with, I'm more than happy to have a chat offline. But that's about it. I know it was short and sharp, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot them through. If not, I'll hand that back to Sam.
Thank you, mate. If anyone's got any questions, just yell it out, or we can connect to you post this presentation today. And we will proceed. So, Crim, thank you so much, and thank you for your support as well of the independent sector. Just a couple of reminders, guys. 20th of this Thursday, we've got our AGM. If you haven't put forth your proxy or accepted the RSVP, please do so. We need 25% of the membership base there to make sure we run it. The second thing is in the 5th of December, we'll be up at Bar, so lovely to see you there. We've got some trends documents coming out. We've got the Guiding Principles update of AI coming out. That's an updated version, and also a data and privacy update coming out for you in December. Next week, it'll be a special presentation hosted by the IMAA, where we're going to run you through the Pulse survey, the survey that we annoy you to fill out. Well, this is the biggest survey in the media sector, and it's going to be talking about who's done really, really well this year. We've had a little glimpse of the data, and it's a big shake-up in there, so we're really, really excited to share that with you guys next week. And then finally, the awards and the end of year celebrations on Thursday night at Alpha for all Sydney agencies. We look forward to seeing you there. We're pumped for that one, for the big one for the end of the year. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we look forward to talking to you next week. Grim, thank you so much. See you guys.
See you guys.